Good evening, this is BelGeode and we are back with some more X-Plane 11. Howdy folks, and we are back here in X-Plane 11, and tonight I'm going to do my annual Oshkosh Air Show. Oshkosh, of course, happens in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and it's actually called EAA AirVenture. And we are here at Whitman Field tonight, and for our first act, we're going to do a virtual tour of this brand new updated scenery that's been created for Whitman Field. It's got a lot of new and interesting stuff that I've got to show you, so I can't wait to go airborne. And for our chariot, for our first ride of 4 today, is going to be this baby right here. This is the Hughes Md 500. Alright, so without further ado, let's go airborne and we'll take a look around the air show grounds and we'll check everything out. So we've got the South Tower there, and if you look real close, you see that little jet? That is actually Austin Myers' jet. Okay, so our first stop in our tour is this right here. This is Boeing Plaza. So named because, of course, it's sponsored by Boeing, and it also features in real life a number of Boeing aircraft that have been brought in for the air show. So you can find all kinds of good stuff there. And then just behind that plaza, we've got like exhibit areas and the EAA Four Corners, as well as, of course, the FAA Aviation Safety Center. Now, one of the things that really impresses me about this version of the scenery is how much research went into putting this year's version together. Aside from, you know, maybe 1 or 2 aircraft that you're seeing down there, like maybe that KC-10, pretty much everything is replicated in here, and it's really cool to see that. Now, do you see this little tower that we're approaching ahead? There are a number of these little towers here that also function as markers, if you will, for the various parts of the air show. So this one in real life is for the vintage aircraft. There are other ones for Homebuilts, for Warbirds, and there's even one for like Ultralights and so on. But one of the coolest things about those little markers is they also double as towers for the ongoing webcams that they had. And we're talking 24-hour access to everything that's going on here on Whitman Field, and it's all available on YouTube. So check it out. So we just passed the vintage area, and now we're moving into the Homebuilts area. As the name would imply, this is where all the people that actually built their aircraft were bringing them in to basically just kind of show them off to everybody else. But another really cool thing that was going on YouTube, which there should still be records of, there was a guy, or I think a group of guys, that were actually building a home-built aircraft on site for the entire week of Oshkosh. And remember, Oshkosh lasts about 7 days, so from Sunday to Sunday. It was one of the most amazing things to see them building this thing live. It was so cool. Alright, we're going to leave the Homebuilts area and we're going to head over to the Warbirds area. So we're going to pop outside of the cockpit here and take a look at some of the vintage Warbirds that they have on display over by the runway. Definitely one of the more popular spots at EAA AirVenture is Warbird Alley, which is where we are right now. This is where you'll find all the various World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, or even more recent vintage aircraft. So things like the L-39s were parked here, the 44 T-6 Texans that came in, and of course a lot of the military planes throughout history. Alright, let's cross the main runway here. Right in front of the hangars there is the area known as North 40 Aircraft Camping. And exactly as the name would state, this is the place where people would fly in their own aircraft, break out the tents that they had in the cargo compartment, and actually camp out here. And we're talking both sides of runway 927 here. So if you look over there, you can see some more people camping out next to their aircraft. Of course, at the very end of the camping area, you'll also find the hotels like the Hilton Garden Inn and the Super 8. So it's convenient for people to actually just stay in a hotel and then walk over to Whitman Field for all 7 days of the festivities. The airport that we're overflying right now is actually a separate entity. This is called Pioneer Airport, which is the home of the EAA Aviation Museum and also the Kidventure Experience, as well as the RC Flying area. So we're going to be passing a whole bunch of parking areas, and then eventually we're going to make our way over to the campgrounds over by a place known as Paul's Woods. So what I'm going to do is fly by here really quickly, and we're going to head over to the Ultralight section of the airport and kind of check that out here. So you can see Paul's Woods directly ahead, and I'm thinking we're going to swing out to the right of it a little bit here, so that way I can show you some of the camping area. So these are alternate camping spots for people who may not have brought in their own aircraft but wanted to make the pilgrimage, if you will, to EAA AirVenture and just kind of camp out there all weekend instead of staying in a hotel. Honestly, if I were going to do it, that's probably how I would do it, or find somebody who has an aircraft and fly in with them and camp out with them. That is on my bucket list. Alright, so we are closing in now on the ultralight area, so I'm going to hop outside of the cockpit once more and take a look at what they have for us to see. Now this runway is designated for ultralight use primarily. They also have a lot of helicopters parked here, and one of the things that you'll be seeing later in the video is the STOL competition, or short takeoff and landing competition. This is where that took place, is on that runway. Makes sense, right? You figure ultralights don't need that much of a runway length, so why not use it to test your abilities with short takeoff and landing? So yes, I will be showing you that in a later segment of this video. Alright, but as you can see, we've also got camping here. That seems to be the theme with this entire experience here at Oshkosh, is you gotta camp, you gotta stay the week, you gotta just check everything out. Okay, so we're gonna fly past the areas where the float planes are and all the competitors for the STOL competition and whatnot, and eventually we'll make it to the southern end of the airport, where I'm going to hang a left and I'm going to take us over to the other float plane base, which I think is really, really cool. Okay, so we just passed the South 40 aircraft camping area, and as promised, I'm going to make that left, and I'm going to take us all the way out to Lake Winnebago to show you what they have done with the seaplane base. Now, the first version of this scenery that I had originally gotten, which you may have seen last year or possibly the year before that, did not have the seaplane base, and I had to pretty much make it myself. But I'm pleased to say it's now considered included with this scenery, so we're going to check that out right now. Directly ahead, nestled away in that natural cove, is the seaplane base here at Oshkosh. This is probably one of the best kept secrets of this whole experience, is seeing all these little float planes and everything come in. Last year they had a Martin Mars coming, which is this big, huge firefighting aircraft. Vintage, of course. But there was an issue with the Mars. I think it got damaged, so unfortunately it was unable to get here this year. But even so, we got some good stuff here. See, folks, this is the kind of stuff that I like. You give feedback to a developer on their previous version of their scenery, and they come back swinging with a whole new updated version. This looks incredible. This blows the pants off of anything that I could have come up with for my copy of this scenery. And you can see that he's got all the little 3D people and everything there. It's just amazing. Now, as if that wasn't enough, just when you thought you've seen everything in this little area of the scenery, there's even more to see. Come on, we're going to head over this way, and you can see, obviously, there's some more float planes hanging out there. But that's not what I want to show you. Take a look at this! There's another camping area with, like, all kinds of campers and tents and so on. This is amazing. I love this stuff. So, yeah. definitely the new version of this scenery, hands down, is one of the absolute best Oshkosh sceneries I have ever seen for X-Plane 11. My hat goes off to this developer. This is some incredible work. Alright, let's head back to the airport now. As you can imagine, an event like this is pretty much on everybody's bucket list that even has like a hint of interest in aviation. So naturally, this place was overcrowded with aircraft. You're going to see when we get back to the airport, just before the Whitman Regional Airport Terminal building, there's also going to be parking at the runway 27 end of runway 9. So yeah, I mean, it's just chock full of people and planes. It is literally the aviation mecca for the United States every year. And if you're ever interested in going, it always happens at the end of July. So like I said, it's usually 1 week long, and it's like the last week in July. It is still one of the things that I would really, really love to do. Don't ask me when I'm going to be able to actually pull that off. However, I will continue to do like the virtual Oshkosh Air Show as time goes on. Okay, so let's take a last look at some of the bits of the airport before we bring this bird in and start the second part of our air show. I called special attention to that Lockheed Hercules that we just flew past there, because in all the videos that I checked, there actually was one parked there this year. Whoa, something just caught my eye here. Well, well, will you look at that? Gretchen and the girls paid a visit to Oshkosh. We're going to have to catch up with the girls a little bit later on there, but look at that. There they are. They made it. Excellent. All right, let's see if we can bring ourselves back to the fictitious helipad that I created just for this episode. I believe it's just past this building right here. Okay, folks, we made it back to the helipad, and that will conclude our virtual tour of Whitman Field and surrounding areas. So, for our next act, we are hopping into what I think is one of the coolest home-built aircraft in history, the Rutan Long Easy, and we're going to do some aerobatics, so stay tuned. We are back with part 2 of our air show, and if you've been paying very close attention to the credits of the last few episodes, you will know that I've wanted to show this one to you for quite some time now. This is the Rutan Long EZ, or Model 61. It's a home-built aircraft with a canard layout, so naturally, of course, I am attracted to it because I love the unusual aircraft designs. And not only that, but this aircraft is famous because it's been around the world, like literally. Alright, let's get our transponder squawking, and we just did our controls wipeout here. Okay, so we're gonna do some aerobatics with this baby here and see exactly what she's got under the hood, because I won't have a hangar queen now. I have to have an aircraft that'll actually do what I would love for it to do. So here we go. We are rolling down runway 18 right, and we will go airborne and do a few circuits of the airport and try to get into some BelGeode style shenanigans. Alright, let's go to the outside view for the takeoff at the blue dot. Okay, we're going to do a teardrop turn here, and I will keep her roughly around 2,000 feet. We'll swing back around and head north up runway 36. I will start out with a couple of rolls, some aileron rolls here, and then we'll get into some more fun and interesting stuff. A little bit more about this aircraft. It first flew on June the 12th, 1979, and it's been available to home builders for almost that length of time. It was originally derived from the Very Ease, which was like the predecessor to this aircraft that the Rutan family designed. And the Rutans are well known for their unusual and groundbreaking aircraft. So not surprisingly, when this one was first offered as something to fly an X-plane by VSkyLabs, I had to get this thing. Okay, but enough of the history of this aircraft. Let's see exactly what we can do with it. Alright, I hope you're ready. I got smoke for this, and let's go. Woohoo! Alright, well, she can handle her rolls, but obviously if the airspeed starts getting a little bit low, then the 4-point turns might be a bad idea. But she was still able to take that on, so we're going to swing back around from the north side of the airport. And I think I want to try a couple of loop-the-loops. So there we can see the regional airport terminal again. And we're just going to come right around and head south. Now the smoke that I'm using is another add-on. I'll have the link to that also in the video description, along with the links for this aircraft and all the other aircraft. Alright, but smoke is on. Let's see if this baby can handle not one, but two loop-the-loops. I'm going to bring her all the way down to about 1,000 feet, just to bring up my airspeed, and then we're going to pull up. Man, I think it's safe to say I am in love with this aircraft. The stall recovery is phenomenal. Matter of fact, I want to try that again. So let me first roll around inverted, because I was inverted. And we'll flip her back over, get a little bit more airspeed, and then I'm going to go vertical, pull her into a stall, and see if I can pull off the world-famous hammerhead turn. Alright, let's get our smoke on. Yep, smoke is still on. And here we go. Let's see if I can pull off a hammerhead. Alright, so that little knife edge pass maneuver that I was just doing there, that is actually something that I saw the real Rutan long ECs do this past week at Oshkosh. A number of these aircraft actually showed up, and in fact they even had one that was jet powered. So you can imagine this airframe with like a jet on there, probably a similar type jet to like what's in the L-39 and thereabouts. Holy crap, the performance and the maneuverability on that bird is just outstanding. Okay, we're gonna swing back around here, and what I will do next is I believe I'm gonna take her up to we'll go just past 2,000 again, and I'm gonna try and pull off a Cuban 8. Now if you're not too familiar with the airshow maneuvers, a Cuban 8 is basically a figure 8 made out of the aerobatic smoke that's lying on its side. It can be a little bit tricky to perform, so you got to make sure you've got enough altitude and enough airspeed, because it involves 2 Immelmans and a couple of rolls in the middle of there. So this is going to get interesting. This is going to get really, really interesting. But I think I can pull this off. After all, this aircraft does have a cruise speed of 144 miles per hour and a max speed of 185 miles per hour. So I believe I've got the horsepower for this. Alright, so our smoke is on, and let's do this. Alright, Cuban 8 was a rip-roaring success. Outstanding. Alright, all I can say is the Rutan sure as hell knew what they were doing when they were designing this aircraft. And more importantly, at least for X-Plane 11, VSkyLabs knows what they're doing when it comes to mimicking this aircraft, this flight simulator. It is a joy to fly. You're probably going to be seeing more episodes with it later on down the line, but for now, I'm not done having fun with this thing. So let's see, what are we going to do this time around? You know what? I think I'm going to go and do another one of those knife edge passes for you so you can see it from inside the cockpit here. And this is really a ballet between your rudder pedals, which ultimately are acting more like elevators at this angle, and of course I'm trying to keep my stick forward just so that, you know, we're actually heading down the runway here. So pretty cool stuff. Definitely one of the niftiest maneuvers to perform with this thing, but she does bleed speed quickly, and we don't want that. Alright, I'm thinking I might be able to pull off an Immelman, so let me hit the deck here. My hard deck is about 1,000 feet. I might break that. Alright, there we go. Okay, and let's pull her straight up. All the way around, there we go. Successful Immelman. And we'll flip back around. We'll go outside and I'll do a couple more rolls here really quick, and then we'll perform a split S to bring ourselves back down to the deck. And this, folks, is why hard decks are established. Holy crap. Oh, wow. We brought it all the way down to 900 feet. Incidentally, this airport elevation is 800 feet, so we might want to get back up there at some point in time in the near future. Alright, I got a couple more maneuvers left in me, and we'll start with this. I'm not gonna lie, folks, I absolutely love that knife edge pass. I practiced all week to get this maneuver down just so I could show you in this video today. I hope you like it. Alright, well that's enough shenanigans for us for one day, so let's go ahead and get our smoke turned off. And we're gonna swing ourselves around with another teardrop maneuver to bring us in on runway 18. Oh, here's another little thing this thing has. Air brakes. Now you may have noticed one of the other more unusual design features of this aircraft in that only the nose gear can retract. It's quite unusual, but it seems to work very well as far as the stability of this thing when it's in the air. Alright, let's bring this bird home and then we'll continue on. Alrighty folks, I sincerely hope that you have enjoyed my fun and shenanigans. It just would not be a BelGeode episode if I didn't do some kind of aerobatics. But after we pull off here and come to a full stop, we're going to change things up on you. I want to go through one of the more interesting things that I saw at Oshkosh, and that is the STOL competition, or the short takeoff and landing competition. Mind you, I'm only in competition with myself, but we'll see how well I can do in a moment. Welcome back, folks. This is part 3, the STOL competition. So I'm going to do my controls wipeout really quick. Now, traditionally, you do something like this in like a Piper Cub or a Super Cub, or in the case of this year, there was this aircraft known as Draco that actually did it, which was a home built. I'm going to be using Laminar Research's Stinson. So let's see, first off, how quickly we can take off in this sucker. Not too shabby. Okay, so she can take off really easily. So we're going to swing ourselves around here. We're in the southern half of the airport at that little ultralight runway that I showed you earlier. So I'm going to use as my turning point the campsite, provided of course I can see it. I know it's up ahead though, so we're going to hang a left here, and then we'll bring her south. Now, unlike what you just saw me do in the Rutan Long EZ, low and slow is going to be the name of this game. In order for us to pull off the shortest stop that we possibly can, I'm keeping the flaps open. So right now I've got flaps 1 setting, and then when we come in on our final approach, I'll put it to flaps 2, and hopefully I should be able to get her trimmed just right that we should just float right down onto the runway and stop in good time. Bear in mind, however, I have never flown the Stinson before in X-Plane, despite it being default. Well, folks, one thing is definitely sure about this aircraft: it does not like flying slow. You can see we're just at about 60 knots, and this thing has become a wobbly goblin. So I'm thinking before we actually line up with runway 36 and then do that last left turn, I'm going to drop the flaps 1 more notch. So there we go. We now have flaps 2, and of course she's going to balloon up a little bit here. So now we can bring her down to 50 knots, and hopefully she will still stay airborne long enough for me to land. Alright, folks, moment of truth. I cannot see the runway ahead of me. I'm just judging by where all the planes are placed to let me figure out where I'm at. Okay, let's see if we can do the short landing part of this STOL challenge here. Ouch. Folks, even in VR, I could feel that. That hurt. That was just shameful. I have brought shame to my house. That will not stand. We've got to try this again, and I have to do better. My pride just won't allow me to accept that as the best STOL landing ever. So let's head back to our start point. Okay, I think I figured out where I went wrong on that last landing. Even though I had this thing like perfectly trimmed, I was a little bit too liberal with the power, which of course caused me to float at the last second. And then when I chopped the power, well, that causes you to drop like a stone. So we're gonna do better this time, I promise you. Alright, takeoff was a little bit longer than the last time, but that's okay. It's still pretty much a short takeoff. I neglected to mention, by the way, that the winds are a little bit iffy today. The winds are coming in the correct direction, but they're also gusting. So even though the winds are like 8 knots normally, they're gusting up to about 17 knots. That also has a part to play as far as why this thing is not very stable when airborne and why it's so difficult to bring her down. It's important to note that when they did this in real life, it actually was a competition. So they had several aircraft in each class take off, one after the other. They did the circuit exactly like I'm doing here, and then they came in and landed one after the other. Needless to say, they had to vacate that runway really, really quickly. I don't remember exactly who won from each category, but the video is available on YouTube if you go check out EAA AirVenture's site. Alright, let's bring her around again. We're back down to 60, and actually I think that's miles per hour and not knots. Could be wrong. Like I said, I don't know much about this aircraft. But let's get our flaps to flaps 2. Yes, I know that was a little bit bouncy, and now my brakes seem to be skidding on this grass here. Alright, that is also not acceptable to me. Let me get the brakes off again. Yeah, we're gonna have to try it one more time. And actually in real life, they did it 3 rounds to get the best of the 3. So we're gonna mimic that, and we're gonna do that here in X-Plane. So once again, we will waddle down to the start position, and we're gonna try this one more time. I will say though, I do like the fact that you've got little people over at the fence there, and of course you've got the little Robinson R22s. We saw the campers earlier on the other side there, and there actually is, I believe, a DC-3 parked here in real life, or at least there was, because by the time you're watching this video, Oshkosh or EAA AirVenture will have already passed. Alright, but here we are. Back at our starting position, so we'll swing her around one more time. And let's see, right about here should be good. Okay, let's do this, folks. This time, no excuses. We're going for broke, and I am going to have the perfect STOL landing. We've already done the perfect STOL takeoff, so let's see if we can pull it all together. So I mentioned earlier that they had categories in the real-life STOL competition. There was one category that was just strictly like Super Cubs, Piper Cubs, so on and so forth. Most notably the ones with Tundra tires, because hey, if you're going to practice your bush flying, you might as well have your Tundra tires on. The second category was the category that had like the Stinson, the Cessnas, and you know, all of those type of aircraft. And then the third category was nothing but home builds, all the kit-built bush planes out there. That, I think, was probably the most interesting category to see some of the unique designs. Alright, let's drop our flaps again. And small confession, folks, you see those 2 porta pots down there? That's what I've been using as my signal to turn around and head towards the runway. So, there you go. Now you know how I've been pulling this off. Okay. A little bit more to the right should do the trick. I've got us trimmed up just about right, so I'm coming in at about 55 miles per hour. I think that should be able to do it. We're going to give it a little bit of power though, and let's bring her in. Even though we're a little wobbly, I'm feeling good about this one, folks. I can see the runway. We are lined up properly on it. I've got just right amount of trim. I'm pulling her down to about 50 knots. And looks like we're descending on profile. Okay, this is good. Little bit of power so we don't bounce. Yes! That is what I was looking for. That is an acceptable STOL landing. Alright, so it took us 3 goes around, but we were able to get it done. Haha, I am happy with that. Alright, so that first takeoff was the best of the STOL takeoffs, but definitely this was the best of the landings, so I can deal with that. And I sincerely hope that you've enjoyed my little attempts at the STOL challenge. Now here's what I would like you to do. I want you to go to the video description, download this scenery, take the Stinson, or if you happen to have a Cub or Super Cub or anything else that you think can pull this off, and I want to see your videos of you doing the STOL challenge. So 3 tries around and see how well you can pull it off. It's awesome practice, especially since eventually I am going to go back to Papua New Guinea and finish up that tour. We got some really short airports there. Alright, but that will do it for part 3. We've got one more part to go where I am going to be going into one of my favorite World War II bombers of all time. So we'll see you in a second, folks. Alrighty folks, we are back for part 4, which is our final part to our little airshow episode. And as you can see, Gretchen and the girls are cheering us on because for this last portion, we are hopping in the Khamsin Studios B-25 bomber. The amazing B-25. And we are going to bomb Oshkosh. Yep, you heard right. We are going to bomb Oshkosh. I'll explain more in a second. Let me drop our flaps to 1. Alright, everything looks good. Generators are on and everything, so we're good to go. And as you can see, I've got the engines fully warmed up, so we are going to be heading out, and we're going to be doing a quick circuit around. We'll do a dry run on the runway, and then we're going to come back around a second time, and we're going to use this little box right here. So here's how we set this up really quick. You'll notice on the right side there's a knob there. I'm going to set that to ripple, which will allow us to hit the trigger once and just successively drop bombs. Then these 2 switches are what we're going to use to open the bomb bay doors and to arm our bombs. They will blow up. But since we are good airshow people, we're not going to bomb the runway or any static targets. We're actually going to bomb the little grass median in between runways 36 left and 36 right. So, now that we've got the plan of attack, our brakes are off, and let's wave goodbye to the girls, and we'll head to the runway. I'm not gonna lie, folks, I was a little nervous going past that B-17. I thought our wings were gonna kiss there. Okay, so this being the last day of Oshkosh festivities, the winds have changed yet again. So this time around, we're gonna have to take off on runway 27, which means I've got to do all this fancy taxiing all over the freaking place just to get to the end of the runway. We did have some Hornet traffic earlier, but they already took off, so we should have a clear path to the runway. It will take me a little while to maneuver all the way down there, so I'm going to spare you the headache. Through the magic of editing, we're going to speed up this whole taxi process, and we will see you at the end of runway 27. Alright, so here we are at runway 27, so we'll come to a stop right here. And we'll need to do our final checks before takeoff, so let me just do a quick scan of all of our gauges. Switches are all in the correct position. Yep. Check our altimeter, we're at 800 feet. Okay, so that is set properly. Compass, make sure that is aligned with HSI. Yep. And this is the old Sperry autopilot, so the HSI looks a little bit different there. Okay, I do believe everything is set, so let's close our window. And here's a funny little fact about the old school pilots of the B-25. You could always tell a B-25 pilot because they were deaf in their left ear. Okay, we're just about set to go. Everything's going to happen really quickly, so as soon as we get past the green dot, I'll pull her up. We'll get our gear up and our flaps up, and then we will proceed to make the left-hand turn to follow the highway. Alright, so without further ado, it is time for brakes down, throttles up, brakes off, and let's go, go, go. Positive rate, gear up, and we'll get our flaps up as well. There we go. Okay, so this is the highway that we're going to follow. We want the diagonal one here, not the main highway that runs north to south past the airport. So we're going to follow this down a little ways, and you can see all the various traffic on the main highway there. I am, of course, using an add-on for that too. That'll be in the credits and in the video description below, as always. There should be another street coming up that runs north to south. Yeah, there it is, next to that farm down there. Okay, so this is where we're going to hang our left. We're going to track 180 degrees, so that'll be due south. We'll go just past the airport. We'll come around, and we will bring her down as close to the deck as we can get it. I believe our hard deck that we had set earlier is about 1,000 feet. Which realistically is about 200 feet off the ground. So that's pretty freaking low. But I think it should be just fine for us to get a nice air show pass for the audience there. At least that's how they do it in real life anyway. Okay, let me trim us up here because we seem to be gaining a good bit of altitude. And I want to stay at around 2,000 for most of these maneuvers. Alright, I believe... successfully past the airport, so our turnaround should be right around here. You know what, let's use this striped field as our guide here. So we'll make our left-hand turn here. And we are going to want a heading of 090. So we'll just swing her around. Compared to some of the other aircraft that you've seen me fly in this episode, this one, yeah, it takes a little bit of work to handle. But out of all of the bombers that were used in World War II, this was definitely one of the more quote-unquote nimble bombers. Notice I have that in quotes because obviously that's relatively speaking. You've seen this one before. I have shown it attacking Japanese Zeros, and we were successful in that endeavor. We did have some air-to-air kills. Now we're going to show off for the audience what we can do air-to-ground style. And in case you were not aware, yeah, this thing does naturally have the capability of being able to drop bombs and fire the guns. So even though X-Plane is no DCS world, you do have the capability to do minimal combat, shall we say. Alright, let's do our dry run right now over the grass and make sure that we have everything lined up. Okay, so you have positive visual ID on our target area. That's that green strip of grass in between the two runways. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to swing back around to heading 180, and while we're on the downwind, we will set up our weapons for use. Now, I showed you where the box is before, so we're going to go back to that in a second. Let me just level us out. There we go, 180, that's what we're looking for. Trim us down a bit here. Okay. Alright, so first things first, we'll open the bomb bay doors. Okay, now that our bomb bay doors are open, we're going to arm our bombs. So this is nose fusing. And believe it or not, that is everything that we need to do to get everything ready to be dropped. We already took the liberty of setting it to ripple, so we are pretty much set to go. We're going to swing ourselves back around here, and let me just look through the roof. I love the way that this ceiling is set up here in this aircraft. So much good visibility whenever you're coming around, especially in VR. This thing is a dream to fly in VR, so if you do have a VR headset and you're having a hankering to fly some World War II vintage aircraft, definitely pick this one up. Alright, let's keep bringing her around. And needless to say, we're going to go to the outside view for our bomb drop, but here's what I'm going to try and do. You know those dots that are the markers on the runway? As soon as we pass the first of those dots, which I believe should be the purple dot, that's when I'm going to pull the pickle switch and start dropping bombs. So now you know what's going to happen. When we reach to the opposite end of the runway where the blue dot is, that's where we're going to pull off to the right and do the exact same circuit that we just did. Alright, but you can see the purple dot coming up. So here we go, folks. Get ready for some boomflowahs. Boomflowah! That was a successful bomb drop. Woohoo! Alright, now that we've accomplished that, what say we follow up our brilliant attack with a strafing run? I think that would be like the perfect capper on this little attack that we're doing here. So, first things first, let's get our gun sight armed, and we will turn on the actual guns themselves. Now, bear in mind, these are only the side cannons. So, you saw my little pin-up lady on the nose there. It's the two guns just behind her, and then, of course, there's two other guns on the co-pilot side as well. Those are the only guns that we get to control. The ones in the nose, the ones in the waist, and on top, the dorsal gun. None of those guns work, unfortunately. But we should have enough heavy cal to go ahead and put some holes in that grass. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here. We are a little bit high up, so I'm going to try and get a little bit of a steep angle on the way in, but we're going to aim for basically the same area, so that little grass spot in between the two runways. Alright, keep bringing her around. I'm actually going to drop a little bit of speed here, so that'll kind of force the nose down. Okay, there we go. We are just about lined up. I'll go to the outside view, but first I want to tell everybody, get some! Get some! Ho-ho! Look at that! Alright, let's go outside now. Alright, mission accomplished. So we'll turn off our gun sight. And we'll turn off our guns, so we are now weapon safe. And we're going to bring her around one more time. This time around, however, we are actually going to land. So I'm going to drop our throttle, so that way we can start losing some airspeed here. We'll need to trim the nose back up, so that way we can keep our speed manageable. Bear in mind, however, I cannot drop the gear or the flaps until this thing goes below 170 miles per hour, so we're definitely going to need to trim up a bit here. Alright, so I hope that you've enjoyed our little mock assault on Oshkosh there. Believe it or not, though, part of the reason why I decided to show you guys that, they did do that. They did have warbirds come in and drop bombs on the grass areas of the runway, basically. So I figured this would be the perfect thing to mimic. Alright. Everything should be good to go. So there is the edge of the runway. We're going to turn around just beyond that. And we do have our gear down, and our flaps should be down to 2. Just going to swing her around here and bring it in. Now, just like everything else, I'm going to use the dots as our guide. And if you had the opportunity to listen to any of the live ATC that was going on, that's one of the hallmarks of this busiest airspace in the world. Whenever you're coming into the runways, you've got to listen to what ATC tells you to do with those dots. A lot of the times they'll tell you to come down on the purple dot or the yellow dot or the blue dot or so on and so forth, depending on which runway you're coming into. So, as a finale to this, I am going to see if I can put her down at or just beyond that purple dot, which also means I will not be following the proper glide slope. But that's okay, because we're just going to pretend that the ATC has told us bring her down at the purple dot. And of course, in typical BelGeode fashion, we're going to do this from the outside. So, strap yourselves in, folks. We're coming home. You know, folks, I think that was probably one of the best landings that I've ever done in this aircraft. Even though we were a little floaty over the purple dot, we still were able to bring all 3 wheels down at once. That's unheard of. That is unheard of, but that was awesome. I enjoyed that. And actually, I've enjoyed this entire episode. In case you haven't figured, it has become a tradition for me to record an Oshkosh episode. And I think part of that is just to honor the people who have actually put in the hard work, the time, the effort, the energy to do this stuff for real, and just to kind of show off, because I really do wish that I were there in real life. And honestly, This is the next best thing. I've got big plans for next year, however, and I will need your help to pull those off. And there we go. So we'll just pull up a little bit closer to Gretchen and the girls, put the parking brakes on, and we can finally call this episode done. So, thank you as always for watching. This has been BelGeode, and I have been flying in X-Plane 11.25. This is the beta version. If you have enjoyed what you've seen, please feel free to give me a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. All of the links to the aircraft and the various add-ons that I've used, including Whitman Field, are in the video description, so be sure to check them out there. They're also listed in the credits, incidentally, in case you did not know. Now, next year, my plan is I want to have a multiplayer version of this Oshkosh air show. So, if you are interested in that, let me know, and I'll figure out how to pull it all together. But for now, thank you as always for watching, and ciao!